Uh, all right. Well, hey, good. I can say good morning, but whenever you're listening to this, thank you for being a part of our first. We kind of was gonna call it a podcast, but it's really more of just interviews for our city leaders here. And hey, with us here, Eric Johnson from Love Central Coast.
Good
Greetings.
morning, gang.
Hey,
Thank you for having
I
me,
should.
Jeffrey.
You're welcome. Hey, let me introduce myself. In case you don't know me, my name is Jeff Fishney. I'm the executive director for Lover Cities. There it
Woo.
is, Lover Cities. And I've got the coolest job in the world. I get a chance to interact with so many amazing people and so many people that are leading these city efforts to love their city. And I
Mm.
get a chance to know all their stories and to hear the different great things going on. But you all city leaders don't get to hear from each other as much. And so what I have heard from the last, couple of years is like, man, we wish we could hear more about what's going on in San Luis Obispo, what's going on in Fullerton or in Florence, South Carolina, or whatever. Well, we're going to get a chance to do that. And what I wanted to do here is to have like about a 20-minute time where you get to hear from, city leaders. And the first off here is Eric. You're the first one, man.
Man, I am
Yeah.
so honored. I can hardly stand it. Here, I
well,
wore my
we went
shirt in honor of you there.
we went in alphabetical order, so that's why maybe that's
That's
why
right.
you're first here. It's not because we like you. Well, we do like
Oh,
you, but it's not
oh, I thought I
because just
changed my
because
name
we
to
like
Abraham or something. So that's why first in the alphabetical order.
you. The C, I think, is up to the top there. So, all right, we're going to start off here. So, Eric, tell us briefly about yourself.
Well, Jeff, thank you for the privilege of working alongside you. It's been, about 5 years, I think, since we've connected with each other, and it's just been gangbuster, even outside of Love Our Cities and everything else. But thank you for not only your support and your heart, but just for working together. It's a joy. So, um, I'm from Monterey. Grew up here, lived here locally. Gosh, I was born in the old hospital that no longer exists. So that's always a good thing. But so grew up here. Monterey County is Monterey in proper. The city is relatively small. You get to know everyone pretty quickly, so you got to watch what you do. But our county is actually huge, and so I've spent a lot more time in other parts of the county since I've been back here and working here for most of my life. But I grew up in a medical family here locally. My dad was a dermatologist and had his whole career here. He's 92 now, still rocking and rolling, which is fun. But they live locally. I came to know the Lord through Young Life in high school. Very, very good start for me, and very early on gave me a heart for caring for the lost and doing serving. I love to serve, and especially the hurting and the down and out. So I did have a career, an actual real career, and still kind of continue in that. But I was in healthcare administration probably for almost 20 years, and then grew unique insurance products with banks and healthcare providers and so on that gave me a little more flexibility when my kids were growing up to be involved in their sports and their school and so on. But I've been, probably involved in working with the homeless in particular for about 15 years, particularly about housing outreach and getting people off the street, fed, cared for. I've been on an agency here locally. This is the largest homeless housing agency. We house about 300 people a night, and just gives me great passion to be at the table talking about those things. So, and then Jeff, I guess in the last 5 years, even while continuing a little bit of the business life, been focusing primarily on setting up and getting involved in getting housing for our homeless, and a unique kind of partnership with our prisons in building tiny homes and using tiny homes as a platform for creating villages where we can house our homeless and get really upbeat people who want to get employed in jobs and get on their feet to really care for them. So that's where I'm spending a lot of my time these days. And
Awesome.
then I'm very involved with our church. Shoreline Church is a big church here in Monterey that just does a lot of outreach, and so involved in a lot of their outreach efforts as well. So that's me.
Well, we're gonna
I
awesome.
have a
We're gonna
lovely
get into
wife.
some of those.
My wife Kathy and
Oh,
I have been married
please.
a little over 30 years, 2 boys. So.
Yay, wonderful. Well, we're gonna get into some of the things you're doing here a little bit. Just briefly, take us a tour around Monterey County. What's it like, and what's some of the history that is there, real briefly?
So Monterey County is huge. We actually are about almost 90 miles long and maybe about 25, 30 miles wide. But we have sort of two sides to our county. Monterey side grew up as a huge sardine industry way back in the right around World War II and so on. And so a lot of fishing industry, a lot of Italian. We also had an army base on the peninsula here. It's called Fort Ord, that ended up being closed in the mid 90s and really changed the dynamics, both the ethnicity and race and a bunch of things of our county, but also just some of the core industries, if you have. For those who don't know, Monterey is actually now the Center for Homeland Security. That's parked at the Navy School, which is a postgraduate education school, really for all the military branches. And we also have a language school, Defense Language Institute, that trains up any of our armed forces that need to go into foreign territories, if you will, and know languages. So, I mean, think of the opportunity there in terms of reaching people groups across the world if we can. But the other side of the county, Salinas side, is all ag. We are 65% of the lettuce you have on your table, probably a Taylor Farms bag, is sitting on your table. We grow here in Salinas, and that has both implications on the people groups we have there. We have probably about 80% of our Salinas side of our county are Hispanics, Latinos, et cetera, which is wonderful culture, family, et cetera. But it also creates some very interesting dynamics on housing and on homelessness, interesting enough. So we have sort of just as two sides of the county, we call it the Great Lettuce Divide, because on one side it's all hospitality, and on the other side it's all ag, and almost near the twain shall they meet. So, but it's a great, great history, a wonderful place to live, and beautiful. Of course, our coastline is also very well known. Going down to Big Sur, it's probably one of the most beautiful drives that there is around the country. So,
sure is. Well, what are some qualities that you love about where you live, and maybe some challenges that you face?
Bet.
Yeah.
Well, and I touched on a couple of, we have very famous industries beyond the ag and hospitality. Pebble Beach Golf Course and all of our golf courses are extremely well known worldwide. As I mentioned, the coastline. The other big industry here is the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And that grew out of the Packard Foundation many, many years ago. And it's famous worldwide, not only for the aquarium itself, but the research around Monterey Bay. We have something unique called the Submarine Canyon in Monterey Bay that just goes down thousands of feet. And it's probably one of the most dynamic learning and research environments around. So it attracts all sorts of interesting marine biologists and so on to the county. So love that. Just love the ocean, the beaches, getting out in the fresh air, just being able to go, a lot of different microclimates and hiking and so on. So it's a big, as I say, it's a big county. I also love the diversity of the language groups and the culture. It is so fun, and by God's grace, speak Spanish, so that allows me into lots of quinceañeras and everything else I wouldn't get into otherwise. So,
man.
But sort of the byproduct too, challenges is we have a lot of overcrowding in our housing, particularly in our ag community, who can't afford rents. Our average rent probably is about $1,800 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Well, you can imagine as an ag worker making barely above minimum wage, even on 2 incomes, affording your own place and so on is very difficult. So we have a lot of families that live together. Unfortunately, a high rate of quote unquote homeless youth caught in that conundrum. So in our schools, by homeless definition and so on, we have over 9,000 homeless youth that are categorized in our schools, which is hard to deal with. So, and the other thing, Jeff, I just say there's because of those different people groups and that divide, there's also a lot of misunderstanding and misperceptions between people groups and they think different things about each other, but usually wrong. So it gives us a good chance to educate and be involved in all that, which is good.
Well, how did you hear about Love Our Cities, and how have we been a help to you?
Well, we at Shoreline Church, we have got a pastor, Pastor Kevin Harney, who one of his real thrusts in life, and he's written lots of books and so on, is around what we call organic outreach. And that's simply how do we get out and share the gospel naturally in our work environment, in our church environment, and out in the community. And with that, we had done several years of organic outreach conferences, if you will, with people from all over the world, just coming to learn and how to, if you will, put in place processes that made a church culture of sharing the gospel and serving. So Shoreline's always been very involved in outreach, but we had heard from one of our youth pastors actually that had been trained at Shoreline, moved over to Lodi. And he had started getting involved with Love Lodi, which was a byproduct of Love Our Cities. And so we went over, met with him, as you probably remember, came over to Love Modesto, on one of your big serve days. I think that year you had 7,000 people gathering at the rally, and we were just enjoying learning more about it. But it was a very natural next year, very natural progression for us to move from just a Shoreline serve day to now saying, how can we connect with 5, 10, 20, 30 churches around our community who all have the same heart and passion and want to serve, but do that together and look like the unified body of Christ out in our community. Well, Love Our Cities has not only a wonderful platform for making that happen, very easy in terms of project management and connecting people to projects and to churches, but also just all the tools that you had already gone through. We didn't have to relearn in terms of how you had marketing tools and connecting tools to pull all these projects and service opportunities together. But then to start connecting with other cities as well and learning from one another on how to do it really well. So we've enjoyed, even banners, simple things like that. Comparing ideas between cities, how to manage projects, rally information. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but
T-shirts,
tried some rallies, and that's been less successful here for various sundry reasons. But nonetheless, it was good to try and to learn on what might work and so on. So, and I might just mention, we decided to love our Central Coast, Jeff, because we didn't want to just do Love Monterey. We wanted our entire county and actually ultimately Santa Cruz County and our surrounding counties on the Central Coast here to connect together and be involved in just going out massively and serving the entire county. So.
Well, and that's a good example of some of the freedom that we want to give to each city, to each area. I remember I remember pushing back on you a little bit. Are you sure the whole county? Because where I live, people don't have any ownership in the county. They're not they don't want to be the county. They want to be their specific city name. Yeah. You're like, no, that's going to work best here. And so, hey, whatever works best for each area, for each city, for each whatever, we would definitely want to work with you on that. Hey, another question. Share about your volunteer day. And some of the efforts that you're doing, in your city.
So, little again differently, and this is the permutation that allows. We've settled on doing actually 2 primary serve days per year. We do one in April and one in October, and we did that for 2 primary reasons. One is it worked better for some certain churches to do one in the spring and one in the fall. And so some participate in perhaps the spring or both, and one in the fall, and it just works better with their calendar and everything else. Secondly, though, is it also accommodated our community partners. So, for example, doing a lot of school project in the spring, especially the end of April, is more challenging because everyone's sort of winding down and interested in summer, et cetera. Whereas in October, works really well because the schools are getting started up. It's a great way to get parents and kids engaged. And so timing wise on different industries, if you will, or different people we're serving, seem to make better sense that way too. Having said that, we usually get probably 1,000 to 1,200 volunteers. We normally have 40 to 50 projects on each serve day, and have established some really great partnerships with the schools. The superintendents just jump on board and love us and are always looking for ways to say, hey, I'm ready, we're all in, what can we do? So it's actually created also because of the 2 days more dynamic relationships on an ongoing basis with some of those folks we're serving, because we see them more often, and really ask our project leaders really to be own some of those schools, if you will, as their primary ministry and outreach. So that's really, and then we, Jeff, as you have in between time now, we have organizations coming to us and saying, hey, we have a like Rancho Cielo this weekend has a packing day going on where they're putting together produce and sending it out to schools and homeless agencies and so on. It's a fundraiser as well for this great ministry they do, but it's also something that we are called upon to promote to our members and to get volunteers. So it's a win-win as well with little projects and one-offs in between that works really well.
So what other efforts are you doing besides the volunteer day? Real briefly, share about some of the other efforts you're doing.
Well, again, as God would have it, one of them that's going on right now, in fact, I had in there later this morning, is we discerned that there was a missing element in this whole COVID crisis with getting food out to our homeless encampments, to those that are unsheltered all over our county. And turns out our Catholic brothers and sisters that we have been wanting to reach out to and connect into the Love Our Cities thing, boy, they stepped up like you wouldn't believe. And we've got 30 volunteers, mostly probably average age 70, which you would think wouldn't come and pack groceries
Yeah,
and serve, but they just can't wait to come
that's
and
great.
fellowship and join you. So we have for the last 4.5 months have been, for example, put together a feeding ministry. We put bags of groceries together twice a week and take it out to about 300 people that are in the woods or in their cars or along the levee by the river, wherever they may be, to take food out to them. And with that, we get to talk to them. We get to, a lot of people want a Bible, some want clothes. It's and it's blossomed again out into other people now that need help. We take food
Great.
to our hotels where actually we have some high risk homeless or COVID exposures and so on. We take out groceries to serve people there. It just really, again, is as God puts and orchestrates this, something that just keeps expanding, and people just get really passionate about it. It's really fun. So that's an example of one during this time where we've both adjusted, but it's turned into an amazing ministry that has
Great.
really pulled together probably 5 or 6 community partners to make it happen, which has been fun.
That's
Yeah.
really great. So in all that you're doing, including the volunteer day, some of the other efforts, and maybe just even moving into possibly becoming an organization someday.
Mhm.
What's working well for you right now? What's one thing working well for you right now? What's one thing that is not working well for you right now?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that works well is we really have a core group of churches, probably 10 or so, that we can count on jumping in full bore all the time, and so we have leadership and commitment from those churches to really come and help, and it has led to, as I said, connection into our Catholic brothers and sisters in an amazing way. So very, very happy about that. I've been happy about the feedback too. We really get great community feedback, which is nice. And as I said, people coming to us for projects and things that can help with. We're at a place where, and by the way, we are tucked under a 501c3, which is something it's called Marketplace Meets Mission, and we set this nonprofit up 15 years ago, very, very loosely, just to connect cities and churches together, and it still performs that function well. We use that 501c3, I guess, as a basis now to be able to take donations and to comply with all the stuff we need to in terms of running a charity, if you will. But we're sort of at the precipice, and have been considering this, as you know, for the last couple of years of how can we launch into really now a structured organization that's got much more capacity to handle more churches, more projects, more connections. But we need staff, and to get staff, you need an office, and to have, well, these days you don't need an office, right?
That's true.
But you need some people that are dedicated and paid and behind putting projects and organizing them together. So we're at a place again where we really need to now get probably some corporate partners and some sustaining church partners that can help sustain a budget that kind of moves us to the next level. And I'm been very involved in this and love it. I've got a limited capacity simply because of all the stuff I'm involved in, but we really need some additional leadership to step up and take on some of those roles too. So.
Which leads us to our next question is how do you connect with businesses, with congregations, nonprofit, government, schools, community groups to get behind your efforts? How have you done that? And maybe some of the plans you have for the future for that.
Yeah. That's a good question. This is where having lived in the community, but also being very connected through a lot of nonprofit boards and stuff I sit on, I have the very good fortune. It's a gift, God gives certain people just to be a connector and an influencer, if you will, in your community. So, but this needs to apply to a lot of people where they're involved, not only in all levels of the community, including schools, city councils, all sorts of nonprofit agencies being on boards, etc., but Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs and things like that, where you've got great friends that you can call upon to step up and say, hey, we're doing this. We'd really love to have you involved. Classic example of that is my Rotary Club. We have about 110 members. Our current president is the city manager for Delray Oaks, which is one of our small cities here on the peninsula. Absolutely delightful friend, really a quality guy. We've done a lot of projects over the years with him, And I can just, I've already told them we're going to have a serve day on the 24th of October. We want you to be part of that. Tell us what we can do. And he says, we're all in, we'll be happy to meet with you and make that happen. But again, he's just a guy that we met in Rotary and have enjoyed. Actually, interesting enough, Jeff, his son was part of and this is a Rotary exchange thing we have with a group over in Japan, where we send over 4 or 5 students each year, and they send 4 or 5 students to us that get to experience the culture and the local layout and just have fun with doing city exchanges. But his son was one of those students that went to Japan, and I had a day where I decided to take him up to the Santa Cruz Beach and Boardwalk, just to have a day of fun. Well, this led to some really great conversations with his son, just about his faith and about exploring who he was as a person and what Christianity was all about and all that. And has really become a dear friend from that. So you never know how those are going to crop out. My biggest, I guess, advice too, beyond being involved in agencies and in your community in day to day, is make sure the faith community is at the table on all key discussions and decisions. Yeah. And usually we're a byproduct or maybe a last thought, as opposed to being front and center, and we really should be. Secondly, though, and Jesus was a master of this, is invite people in, come and see. And I think on serve days, this creates a great opportunity to do this, because you can invite a neighbor to come join you that wouldn't otherwise come in. It's very low barrier. It's everything else. But these folks that are also key leaders in the community, they come experience service, serving others, and it just changes their life. It's great. And it just, creates connections. Think of our churches. We have not people that are just there to worship on Sunday, but they all own businesses. They're all connected into schools. And so get your people in your own churches, involved in taking the lead on some of that stuff.
That's good. So if I were to walk the streets of Monterey, or the whole county, which I have done.
That'd be a long walk, by the way.
I spent, well, the whole thing, right. But I certainly have walked all around the ocean area, all around. I've been in Salinas. I've been around the whole area there. I haven't done this though. But if I were to do this, if I were to ask people, what comes to your mind when you think of love our Central Coast? What do you think people would say?
Well, what's interesting. The first thing people know is these blue shirts. When we go out and serve, we probably have close to 3,000 shirts now out in the community from all the people that have served year over year, and this is kind of our logo, our mantra, and everything else. So when people see the blue shirts showing up, they number one know who we are, which is really cool. Yeah. So already identified, I guess, with serving and caring for others. But I think you would hear, boy, they're really great partners and very caring community members. They do some really creative stuff that really boosts up, for example, the spirits of kids on the campus. They're available, they're engaging, and one example of a great project very quickly with a middle school here. Middle school desperately in need of attention and love for the kids, and they'd been experiencing suicides and fights and this, that, and the other thing, just high racial tension, etc. But we got a team together that went on the campus, and we painted 13 murals on their campus. I mean, these were big murals. They're 5x7 murals, and very inspiring sayings, a lot of colors, and it gave a great chance for kids to get involved and come in and help outline, on the walls what we were painting, and paint the colors and be very. And then we also did this on 20 benches on their campus and put words like strong, courageous, faith, all these cool things, purple, which is school color. But one byproduct of this, Jeff, which was just really fun, is right after we finished, 2 days literally after finished painting on one of the benches in kind of the main mall area, if you will, of that campus, I was there after school just doing some cleanup and some touch up and so on. 3 girls that were after school there and by themselves, they went over to one of these benches and showed me what a mean boy had written about this one girl of these 3 girls on that bench. He'd taken a Sharpie and wrote in black, something derogatory, which she, obviously didn't feel good about. But what we were able to do is go right over to the closet and get purple paint and together paint over this and make it disappear. And so it just created not only obviously that relationship and that immediate effect, but said, you know what, we care about every one of you as a student, and that's why we're here. So those things are fun.
That's awesome. Hey, so what are, we got 2 more minutes left. What
Sweet.
are some of the dreams you have for Love Our Central Coast in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, for me, just continued growth. We have great partners. I'd love to see. And one thing, Jeff, we've had a challenge with is doing rallies, major rally, because we're covering an entire county. It's hard,
Yeah,
to meet 30 minutes away and then go to your project
of course.
on a rally. So creating creative ways to do the rally. One of the things I'd love to see that we keep talking about is doing an annual event for Christians, for followers, and maybe a beach concert, for example, that has a Christian band that comes in, and just a celebration separate from the serve days, but just something to bring the faith community together and to really celebrate all that God's been doing. So love to see that happen, and just, creative ways to bring our folks together to celebrate together. We're also, figuring this out. How do we re-engage as churches in new ways in our new environment? And we're going to be meeting online with our leaders next week just to say, boy, what have you been doing during this time uniquely? And what has God kind of showed and revealed to you that's meeting needs in new ways? There's some really creative stuff going on, but how do we re-engage churches in ways that we can work in small groups, but practically own your neighborhoods and start to fill the gaps that are being met? So, and then, as I said, just getting invited to the table on all discussions at city council level, at homeless leadership council meetings, all these, the faith community always needs to be invited into those discussions because they already play such an important role. So I would love to see that happen on a regular basis. And I'd love to see us grow up to, we're at about 30 churches. I want to see us at 40, the next year. So those are my dreams.
Hey, I have a dream for you.
Amen.
One of my big dreams is not only is the faith community invited to these discussions, but we lead these discussions. We initiate these discussions. And I think with COVID, that's been happening in a lot of places where, the community realizes that we have the greatest volunteer force there is, and we're more organized than anybody. And we want to work together with the community. We want to just do it for the community. We want to come alongside and all work together because we're all in this community together. And so,
no, it's a great.
I hope at a time when that influence, it takes time, but when influence rises up, our community looks to us to lead, especially in times like this.
Well, and one sort of little known fact, for example, just in the homeless circles, 60% of shelters across the country are run by faith-based organizations. 60%. So can you imagine that emergency safety net, if you will, if that was missing, what that would mean to our homeless community. So yeah, you're right. We're already doing stuff that people aren't recognizing, either the church that needs to as well. So it's good.
Eric, thank you so much for all that you do, all who you are. I love the humility in which you speak, and the graciousness, the smile. I mean, you're winsome, and I think you're a huge asset to your community. And I appreciate you sharing all that you shared, and it's going to be fun to, for other cities to hear this. And maybe there's some ideas that came out. Maybe there's some practical action that needs to take place. And I think that's the whole goal of these conversations, is that we can encourage each other because we're all on the same team. We're all in this together. We have different cities, but yet, we're part of the same movement, that's happening. So thank you so much.
So appreciate you. Love you, brother. And I'm looking forward to listening to the other cities as well. So thank you for doing this. This is awesome. God bless everyone, and go shine for Christ.
Have a great day, man.
See you, Jeffrey.
Bye-bye.